Earlier this week, President Muhammadu Buhari said his belief in the indivisibility of Nigeria remains firm and the unity of the country is non-negotiable. He made these comments while speaking on the crisis of the North-South blockade of food items and livestock from entering the South. While this misunderstanding has been resolved, matters arising from it has left many people wondering if Nigeria is now more divided than it has ever been. Here to speak on this and the state of the nation is political analyst Dr. Sunday Adejoh. Welcome to the show. I mean, it's a very, very difficult situation to talk about because naturally we're all aware how ethnically diverse Nigeria is. So where we have a situation where we're talking about a blockade of anything along geographical and along ethnic lines, it would make anybody fearful of this showing itself as a precursor to some type of civil war, heaven forbid. Do you see it going this far?
Well, thank you for having me. Looking at the state of the nation, one will appreciate it better when we understand, the internal contradiction that characterize, the political and economic architecture of our country. Of course, Nigeria is a plural society. You have diversity in terms of religion, in terms of ethnicity. And of course, so sometimes actions and inactions are judged by, ethnic or, religious inclination. But looking at the recent blockade on food, the transportation of food from the northern part of Nigeria to the southern part of Nigeria is occasioned by, by the impact and implication of the NSAS protest on these guys who supply food in the southern part of Nigeria. And of course, they also laid claim, on the implication of the Sasha, crisis on their products, on their trucks, and of course, even on their marketers. But having said that, I think Nigerians must be careful, and also some political analysts must also be careful not to allow bias and sentiment, to reflect in the analysis. Yes, they are Nigerians; they have right to decide what to do with their products and what not to do. But however, I do not think that was the right step in the right direction. They had come out to tell government about their grievances, but blocking the supply of food, I don't think that was the right thing they did, because it has multiple consequences. It has spillover effects that they themselves may not even know. But of course, you could see that no state in Nigeria is a state of autarky. There's no state in Nigeria that is economically self-sufficient. And so it gives you that idea that, that interaction between different states, getting those things that nature has not availed to your state from another state that nature has made available. That blockade had a collateral damage, if you ask me, because the northerners wouldn't have, there's no way that they would have consumed entirely the products that they have. And so that also generated a lot of economic crisis in the north. We had perishable products perishing. We had farmers who could not generate revenue that they could have generated because of the blockade. And of course, that also has implication for food security. It has implication in terms of inflation, considering the fact that already the country is already, undergoing inflation of food items and all of that. And so I don't think that was the right step in the right direction. It had implication on the northerners as much as it had on those in southern part of Nigeria.
Well, along those lines, Dr. Sunday, then some opinion molders in the south down here began to say that it's all good that now the South will begin to concentrate on maybe, trying to produce their own food and stuff like that, anti what was being done by the people in the North. Do you think that this was the right comments to make? Was that a unifying comment? Even if they could begin to produce, was that the right time to raise up such issues?
Well, I do not think that was the right time to raise such issues, considering, of course, the existing ideological conflict that has characterized the country, considering the fact that we are beginning to have a country that is more divided than it's united. And so these are issues that will further widen the cleavage of social division within our country. But of course, there are lessons to be learned from the blockade, but be that as it may, we have geographical and ecological differences in Nigeria. And so there are certain commodities that, whether you like it or not, it will be difficult to grow them in the southern part of Nigeria. You can only get them in the northern part of Nigeria. And so, like I said, just as no state within the international system is economically self-reliant, there's no how. No matter what mechanisms we put in place in the south, no matter what mechanism you put in place in the north, there must be that interdependence and interrelationship as far as economic products and commodities is concerned.
All right. If we must win this war on insecurity, insecurity, of course, can be caused by a lot of things, even ethnic and religious. But if we must win this war on insecurity, the citizens have a huge role to play. Help us dissect these roles. Do you think the people are adequately playing these roles?
Yeah, you are correct. The citizens have a lot of role to play. But securing a country is not the sole responsibility of the citizen, it's the responsibility of the state and of the government to ensure that, our territorial integrity, the lives and properties of our citizens are safeguarded. Citizens can only play, micro role as far as security is concerned. Of course, we know security is everybody's business. Yes, citizens can help in times of intelligence gathering. Citizens can help in times of reporting suspicion or suspected elements. There are barely less role citizens can play, especially when it comes to issue of community policing. Yes, citizens can contribute in that aspect, but fundamentally, it rests on the shoulders of the state, of the government, of the security agencies to ensure that citizens are protected. And when we look at security, especially within the balance of the 21st century orientation of national security, you appreciate the fact that security is now supposed to be citizen-centered. Security is now supposed to shift from, the conventional, traditional, militaristic, state-centric perception of security to a security that is citizen-centered, to a security that looks at human needs and all of that. And so part of the reasons why we have the increasing rate of insecurity in our country is because human needs, basic needs of man, basic needs of our citizens is yet to be addressed by the political class. And this was beautifully captured, by the National Security Policy of 2014, and of course the reversed version of 2019 of the National Security Policy captures holistically the need for security orientation to deviate from this state orientation to citizenship-centered kind of security. And so when you have increasing rate of poverty, when you have increasing rate of unemployment, when you have increasing rate, of joblessness, increasing rate of illiteracy, increasing rate and impact of ecological factors on citizens, then this will spill over to the kind of security challenges that we are having in our country. One way citizens can contribute is, of course, give intelligence gathering to state. But like I said, fundamentally, the state must begin to address these basic needs of man, these basic needs of their citizens. And by so doing, the state will not have to be bothering herself with all this, approach we are using. Take a look at the northwestern part of Nigeria, where you have banditry ravaging Katsina, ravaging Zamfara, Kaduna, and all of that. You will see a clear manifestation of high rate of illiteracy, high rate of unemployment, high rate of poverty. And these are the elements, that encourage insecurity, because the state fundamentally has not been able to perform its responsibilities to our citizens and is spilling over to the kind of security crisis that we have in Nigeria. Citizens really have a role to play, but they have less role to play. The state must assume its responsibility as a state.
I'm with you. I'm with you partially because I always say that if you're going to be tough on crime, you have to be tough on the causes of crime. And naturally, that leads itself into talking about a holistic approach to addressing people's security concerns. Or if you speak to somebody and ask them what their primary reason for committing a crime is because they don't have any other form of income, I can understand where holistic approaches begin and end. However, though I don't want to take away from your point in talking about the responsibility the state plays in safeguarding its citizens, there has to be a certain amount of responsibility each person takes for themselves. That you are living in relative poverty isn't always going to be a valid excuse for criminality behavior. So if we're talking about the abduction of school children, surely I don't feel as though there can be any valid excuse other than for somebody wanting to deviate from what the rule of law is for whatever reason they may be. So when we have issues like Boko Haram, for example, who make it very clear that their ideology is against Western education in the first place, talking about the level of literacy is almost irrelevant in talking about combating those issues because these groups don't even believe in that type of education anyway. So if you were to look at that, what firstly do you think the government should be focusing on to making sure that we can tackle these problems? Because it's more than just criticism, it's culture, it's lots of people's different customs, it's the fact that not everybody sees itself as wanting to live what your definition of a good life is. So how do you expect people to readily put a one-size-fits-all solution to a country that's so diverse culturally, a country that not everybody believes in Western education, not everyone believes in working yourself out of poverty? How do you change that? How do you challenge that?
Well, you see, in looking at this situation, we must appreciate that there are remote and immediate causes for some of these challenges that we have. And so if we do a threat analysis and we preempt what is possible, what possibly could occur in the next 20 years, in the next 15 years, then we could avoid it. But most times we are more interested, in trying to address, the symptoms of this situation rather than addressing the remote and immediate causes of those situations. Yes, you are absolutely correct. There is no justification as to why people should take arms, as to why people should begin to kidnap fellow citizens. Yes. But if you look at the remote causes for these things, you understand that it still goes back to the failure of the state. However, yes, we all do not need to, it's not possible to have a country where everybody must enjoy good life. It's not possible to have a country where everybody must be educated. Yes, that is fundamental. However, there are a lot of people who are not educated, but they still enjoy good life. And so it still means that for them to enjoy good life, the state still has a role to play. The state must create enabling environment for people to thrive. I can't afford education, but I have a skill. Do I have an enabling environment to drive my skill? If I'm a welder, for instance, or I have a saloon, do I have the electricity? Do I have all these things to ensure that my business thrives? Or I need to rely on generator, buying fuel, whose price is even epileptic and all of that. Even electricity, the bills are increasing by the day. These are things we need to look at, and we must look at it from a holistic perspective. The state needs to begin to go back to the drawing board, create enabling environment. We are not saying that the state must employ everybody, that the state must ensure everybody is educated. No, that is practically impossible. In other climes, there are people who do not even need a degree, but they are doing well because the state has created enabling environment for whatever business, for whatever skill they have to thrive. And that's the right way to go. And the state needs to begin to look at this issue. For instance, a lot of people in northwestern part of Nigeria are agrarians. A lot of people in the northeastern part of Nigeria are agrarians. And I know a lot of people who are millionaires because they are into agribusiness. But when the farm becomes insecure, when people are deterred from going to the farm, then it has consequences both on food security and both on the livelihood of those farmers. And this is what we are talking about. Fundamentally, the state just needs to create an enabling environment. Well, I think it is difficult to set a time frame as far as eradicating these security challenges that we face, especially looking at issues of terrorism and, of course, banditry. But I think with more commitment, with more determination and political will on the side, on the side of those who are responsible for ensuring that our territorial integrity is safeguarded, we should be able to see, light at the end of the tunnel, a tunnel that will not be too far, from now. But if you remember, the former chief of army staff said it clearly that it will be difficult to eradicate Boko Haram even in the next 20 years. Though he has been at the war front, he has been the head of Nigerian's army, and so he understands from what angle, he's looking at this issue from. But I feel that with more commitment, with more integration of modern technology, science, and all of that, we should be able to nip this situation in the bud in the next few years. But of course, there's an emerging, increase in the rate of banditry, and if that is not nipped in the bud as soon as possible, then we are going to have a lot in our hands to contend with, especially as we approach the next electoral cycle. The state needs to approach this from both institutional approach and behavioral approach. We need to increase our sensitization of the populace. We need to address the issue of recruitment into this group. As long as the issue of recruitment is addressed, as long as the issue of proliferation of small arms and light weapons can be addressed, this will begin to help to address this security challenge that we face in our country.
Doctor, just yesterday, another kidnapping took place in Zamfara. While in Katsina, a soldier was killed. These soldiers were returning from what was dubbed an operation. They've been in this operation for 3 days now. It's looking like someone snitched on the soldiers. What's your sense?
Well, that will not be totally impossible. This is it's not a conventional kind of security challenge that we are facing. And so when you have people that you can hardly tell whether they are bandits, whether they are citizens who are going about doing their normal activity, then it becomes difficult, to address these issues. Communities must cooperate, with the armed forces, with the security agencies to help, address this issue. But when you have people within the community, that these soldiers and security agents are there to safeguard, spying for these, for these criminals, then it becomes difficult. But that's where also the role of intelligence come in. I think so far we have not seen, clearly, evidentially, the manifestation and processing of intelligence by our intelligence agency. There are supposed to be a lot of covert operation, and all of that to give information to other security agencies and process this intelligence, into helping to address this issue. And we are not seeing a lot of that kind of situation. We are not seeing a lot of the utilization, of science and technology, considering the political geography, of Zamfara State, of Katsina, and of Kaduna, then of course linking to Niger. It is impossible to man all these territories, but with the aid of science, with the aid of drones, with the aid of certain geographical information systems, we could help, minimize the rate of casualty we have on the side of our military and other security.
Now, Doctor, while you were talking, I was just thinking, if these bandits, because there was an interview I conducted here, and it was said that some of the people of that state were giving, actually, one of the bandits, I think their leader, said to, I think it was the issue with Gumi, said to him that was saying that, look, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, we know what is happening. We have people right there in your midst who give us stories. That is infiltration. And then one is wondering, why can't particularly the police, if you like, you can include the army, get the people of these communities, train them, infiltrate these areas, to have people on ground who can pass information, easily to the army or the police to be able to deal with these bandits or deal with these insecurity issues?
Well, I think, like I said a while ago, because these guys have infiltrated the society, it becomes difficult to identify who is who. But that's where intelligence come in, and that's where technology also comes in. Because these guys who give information to the bandits in their hideout most times use, use telephone communication. How well, as a country, have we been able to track using technology? You find situations where people are kidnapped, calls are put through to their families for ransom, and yet we're unable to track their location. You have a situation where people are kidnapped, videos are released and uploaded in the cloud, yet we are unable to track the source and the location of those videos. We must begin to go technological if we have to address this issue. People will make phone calls and yet you can't track the phone call to both the receiver and the sender, then it means we have a lot in our hands. And unfortunately, a lot of attention is paid to the military, and this is not, ordinarily, constitutionally, it is not the duty of the military to ensure that internal security situations are addressed. It is the duty of the Nigerian police and, of course, the duty of the DSS to help in intelligence gathering. But the military is roped and dragged into all of this issue, and the military is getting overstretched. There's a need for revitalism. There's a need for restructuring. There's a need to reposition the Nigerian police to make it a 21st century policing kind of system. And you cannot do this if we do not employ technology. Apart from the fact that we have just barely over 370-something thousand policemen, trying to safeguard over 200 million people, which is practically impossible. But one thing that can help to at least reduce this gap, it's technology, and I've not seen effective and efficient utilization of technology and intelligence gathering as far as this whole situation is concerned.
Still going onwards with the topic of holistic approaches, or I guess human resolutions, do you think that, you just mentioned there the numbers, how the numbers of the populace, really dwarf the numbers of the people who constitute our police force in this country. Do you think there should be an active drive towards introducing more Nigerians into taking up employment within the police force? Or do you think that nationally, on a national level, there should be conscription services that draft more people into our armed forces? What do you think the real situation is there? Is that we don't have enough people naturally, and so we should have enough, or we should make these levels of employment more attractive for people to even want to join them?
Well, I think it's important that we increase the manpower of the Nigerian police force. Very important. Sometimes last year or thereabout, we heard that the Nigerian police was to recruit about 10,000 men and officers. But unfortunately, I don't think that has been done because of the interagency rivalry. You have a clash between the IG of police and, of course, the chairman of the Police Service Commission as to whose authority it is, to recruit. And all of these things are, setting us back.
When we talk about open government and how that can assist communication or relationship between the governed and those governing the governed, what do we mean here, and how can that help anyway in citizen and their leaders' relationship?
Well, a cordial relationship between citizens and their leaders is very important if leaders must achieve their objectives as leaders. If they must achieve, good governance, then there must be cordial relationship between both the elect and, of course, and the electorate. But there are factors that can encourage this cordiality, and there are factors that can increase the gap between, citizens and the government. A situation where you have government policies, being done without consideration of the needs of the citizens. A situation where you have government believing that they know what the citizens need better than the citizens do, then it is difficult to have cordiality in terms of relationship. Then, of course, a situation where government policies look like they are targeted at impoverishing the same citizens who elected them into political position, you will not expect to have cordiality as far as relationship between government and citizens is concerned. So most times, what helps to widen the gap between citizenship and government is the kind of policies and the leadership style, of the state. And where you have policies that are favorable to the citizens, then you begin to have cordiality, begin to have citizens supporting the state. And most often than not, you get that through public opinion. And of course, using the media and other platforms, government gets a feedback on what citizens think about their policies. But most times, regardless of whatever citizens think, sometimes government is bent on doing what they want to do. It is not just peculiar to this administration. Over time, successive administrations in Nigeria have manifested this, this kind of position where more often than not, government tends to do what they want rather than what the citizens want. For instance, how many Nigerian citizens are happy with the price of electricity in Nigeria? How many Nigerian citizens are happy with the increasing rate of inflation on food items, with the increasing rate of the price of petroleum? How many Nigerian citizens are happy that they go to hospitals and they can't get medical services because their hospitals are dilapidated? How many Nigerian citizens are happy that their leaders cannot use the same hospitals that they use, but they have to travel abroad for medical attention? These are things that widen the gap. How many of our political elites come back to their constituencies after winning election? It is only when it is time for election, you see some of them eating roasted corn on the road, some of them eating akara, some of them sitting and eating with local villagers. But after the election, they are nowhere to be found. They are not accessible by their constituencies and all of that. And so this helps to widen distrust between citizens and government. But when government has, citizens at heart, when government policies are favorable, when government policies is geared towards, ameliorating, the crises and condition of their citizens, citizens will be ready at all costs to support the government. And when government gets the support of citizens, you can imagine what the state will look like.
All right. You actually mentioned trust, very key, trust. Let's talk about that for a while. Trust is the key ingredient between those elected and the ones who elected them. Where would you place this factor in the scheme of governance and relationship between both divides as it is today in Nigeria?
I think trust is gradually eluding us. If you put it on a scale, you see that there's high degree of distrust in the political class. The citizens hardly trust those in government because they have reasons, of course, not to trust. We have seen government promise and fail. And so when you promise and you cannot do that which you have promised, governance is a social contract. You want to campaign, you tell me you are going to do this, and I know this is what I need as a citizen. And this candidate is coming exactly with what will address my challenge. And so people vote for this candidate. But when they assume political position, they are unable to keep to the campaign promises that they make. And so once that begins to happen, then the state begins to lose trust. I give you a clear example. Before President Buhari came on board, the trust Nigerians have in him was overwhelming. In my about 4 decades on earth, I've not seen a candidate that Nigeria have so trust that Nigerians were ready to go all out. And of course, Nigerians went all out to ensure that President Buhari becomes the president of Nigeria because he promised that he was going to eradicate insecurity. He promised he was going to fight corruption to a standstill. He promised that there was going to be economic boom in Nigeria. But 6 years down the line, have we been able to eradicate insecurity in Nigeria, or the insecurity situation is getting worse? Have we been able to fight corruption? Yes, they have made some achievement in the anti-graft war, but in my assessment, I think that is not good enough. Poverty, have we been able to address the issue of poverty, or we have become the poverty capital of the world? These are issues that will definitely help to increase the rate of distrust on the side of citizens as far as governance is concerned. But trust can be reestablished. Trust can, be reenacted if those in government begin to live up to their campaign promises. It is one thing to say a thing, it is another thing to do it. We must merge what we say with action. And until we do that, it will be difficult for citizens to trust. At some point, they said they had removed fuel subsidy. At some point, they said there's partial subsidy. You do not even know which to hold on to as a citizen of your country. Why won't people distrust those in government?
Do you think then that the solution is for people who are in elected offices or hoping to be elected into office? Do you think that it's a situation that their campaign promises are not viable, that they are too big to do? Do you think that instead of saying that within this 4-year term I'm going to eradicate poverty, as opposed to saying within this 4-year term I'm going to bring our poverty percentage down to X percent of our population, do you think that it now becomes, in order to build trust, as you say, do you think that the onus should now be on making realistic goals or realistic promises to the electorate? Is that the difference that you think needs to happen?
Well, I think that is part of it, but I don't think what these campaign promises they put before us are not realizable. They don't. All we need is the political will and the commitment, and of course, we need to. Those in political position need to surround themselves with competent hands, with people that can help drive your agenda, drive your vision. But I think fundamentally, what the problem is. It's not because this agenda are not realizable. It is because those who are saddled with the responsibility of addressing this agenda do not have the necessary commitment and competence to do this. More often than not, political positions, political appointment is given for political compensation. What role did you play in my election? You were able to give me 100 million, and so you are entitled to become a commissioner or a minister or a director general. When we continue to run government like this, we will continue to have round peg in square holes, and you can't get the results. Government must be run like a private entity that is goal-driven. And so sometimes I get dismayed when sometimes you need to get a directive from the president to do your responsibility. Just like yesterday or so, the president was giving a directive to the Nigerian Immigration Service to ensure that our border is safeguarded. For heaven's sake, why did I make you the CG of Nigerian immigration, if not to do that? More often than not, you have to direct the police, you have to direct this. You are there. You don't need direction to begin to implement what you are there for. And that is the challenge that we have. If people fail to carry out their responsibilities, they need to be sanctioned. If you are IG of police and you are not performing, and I'm the C in C, you are off. And because you know you'll be off, every commissioner working under you will be under pressure to ensure that they give you result. And we need to begin to walk in that line. If not, we will not achieve all of these things. All the set goals, counterinsurgency, ensuring national security, fighting corruption, ensuring economic growth and development, they are all possible if we have the political will and if our ministers are picked based on competence. But what I see are political compensation. How many ministers in Nigeria as we speak are not members of the APC? And so no matter how good you are, no matter how competent you are, if you are not a member of the APC, then you cannot become a minister, you cannot hold some political position. How do you contribute your quota to national development? We have politicized a lot of things, and that is why we are not getting the desired result, not because those goals are not achievable.
Doctor, the president recently gave an order for security operatives to shoot those who are caught carrying AK-47 rifles. The governor of Benue State was elated about this and said this should have happened long ago. What's your thinking?
Well, I think I saw the governor of Benue State really happy, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the governor congratulating, the president and appreciating this decision of the president. Of course, the governor turned has been one of the major critics of the president because, of course, Benue State has also been a major victim, farmer herders conflict, which the governor, of course, feels is as a result of the fact that herders, are carrying light arms and, and weapons about. Yes, is the policy, is the statement is right, is the right statement in the right direction, but of course we cannot begin to celebrate that statement. We need to see the statement being backed up, with action. And sometimes you see the challenge we also have in Nigeria sometimes is that we try to focus more on the micro issues rather than focusing more on the major issues that we have in Nigeria. There are bandits in the forest carrying what is beyond AK-47, carrying rocket launchers, carrying all manner of arms and ammunition. Have we been able to look for those guys and deal with them and bring them down? But that, of course, is not to say that these headers have the right to carry arms. Yes, whoever carries arms becomes illegal because nobody is allowed to carry arms without license in Nigeria. So whoever is caught should be dealt with. I think that statement is fine, but in implementing this statement, we must be sure that we also do that within the course of the law. Sometimes it is not good enough for the president to just make a statement. Such statements sometimes also need to be gazetted. And I tell you, many of these security agents are also careful because sometimes when you are overzealous, you end up landing yourself in trouble. And if you trace that or you associate your action to the statement of Mr. President, my dear, most times they are left alone to face their parade by themselves. And so I think security agents do not need to be overzealous or overreactional because of the statement of the president, and therefore giving room for some form of human rights abuses here and there.
We have just under a minute left on our conversation. If you were to quickly envisage the type of Nigeria you want to see, your utopian Nigeria, what would that look like, very briefly? What is the best type of Nigeria you can imagine?
A Nigeria where there is peace and security, because every Nigerian is enterprising. If you cannot provide job for them, provide enabling condition for them to go about their lawful duty. All we need in Nigeria fundamentally is to ensure that our peace, our security is guaranteed by the state.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Sunday Adejoh. It's been interesting discussing with you and your analysis.